Welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show. It is a fast Friday, and we've got a big game. I guess a big game. Big stadium. Cool stadium. Wrigley Field. Going to be getting ready to rock here for the Buckeyes on 11 a.m. Central Time. Noon kick Eastern. Buckeyes will be on Big Ten Network taking on the Northwestern Wildcats Schlegs. And looking through some numbers and some stats, some different things through the paper, Northwestern. And what's interesting, Northwestern has a fairly solid run defense. They 19th nationally, just allowing just over 108 yards per game. Total defense isn't necessarily that great. It's 51st in the country. So not nearly obviously as good against the pass, but I'm curious to see as we look at this, how Ohio State Schlegs will be able to attack this Northwestern team up front, because Ryan coming into this game is going to want to shorten the game, win it the surest way possible, GTFO, get out of there. And in doing that, it requires you to run the football.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, Bob, I mean, they're 16th in FBS and rushing defense. But guys, here's the deal. You want to stop the run? You want to stop the run. Well, they're terrible in pass defense. So even those, right? It's like, hey, you just want to continue to stop the run? Boom, slant, sluggos, deep balls, posts, whatever the case may be. Like, they're going to watch the film, guys holding up the backdoor slider, as you will, right, with like a G or Brandon Ennis, right, slipping through the different motions, like, running backs, having a linebacker. Like, what do you want to do to stop those guys? Because, if you want to load up the box, we got so many different weapons. We can make checks. You're just going to hit them. Now it's going to be really quick score. And that's where I really think this game's going to be offensively for us. It's either we're going to be able to run the ball, right, at steady clips and have the pass, because they want to try to be a little bit more balanced. But if they decide they want to block to stop the run, we're going to pass on them all day.
I guess, and so that's my thing is, like, Ryan has made a concerted effort this year, him and Chip. Like, they're gonna run the ball. They're gonna be 50-50. And so even if they've got like a bare front, load the box up, some of the stuff that Purdue did, they went some 5 down stuff and different things. Like, I still feel like Ohio State's gonna make a concerted effort to try to run the football against that.
Well, you saw that even versus Penn State. They knew you were running the football. They just out-executed them running the football. I think that's what they were saying going into this game to your guys. Hey, listen, they're going to load the box. Let's see if we can do it. Good on good. Here we go. Inside drill. But let's also not mistake ourselves in the fact that you got all this perimeter talent. They give up 250-something yards a game passing. They don't have the talent to be able to handle the back end. So if they're there, hit them. Those are easy wins. And then Northwestern has to figure out what you want to do.
So it's funny you say that. It's like, yeah, they're 101st against the pass, 241 yards given up, 11 touchdowns. They did have a pick 6 against Iowa, but I can't imagine, like, Ohio State, I think they can throw it on them all day long. I just don't know if that's what they'll want to do. Looking at this Northwestern offense, not very good.
Old Jack.
Throwing the ball, no, they struggle throwing the ball. They're 118th in the country, and even rushing the ball, they're 115th. So we start talking about shutouts. Like Ben Stevens yesterday told us that this Northwestern offense is better than Purdue's. I think it might be mildly better than Purdue's. I don't think that it's going to be some great jump, and I don't know if the Buckeyes will pitch another shutout. Those are very difficult, and it required Purdue missing a couple of really close kicks. But I think this might be a little more of a challenging day for the offense than it could be potentially for the defense.
Defense, I mean, their quarterback for Northwestern, 38% basically when facing pressure. They're going to get after him. If you look at all the losses that they've had in conference, this is Northwestern, right? Indiana, Iowa, Washington, and Wisconsin, not world beaters, except for maybe Indiana, right? We already saw what we did to Iowa. Average margin of loss, 21 points. And that's kind of what I'm looking at here, Bob. It's like you're going to get on them, hot and ready, just like a Krispy Kreme donut, right? Right there in Wrigley Field.
The lights are on.
You do that. Hey, we're going to load the box, stop the run. They're going to be there. Those quick hitters are going to be there. I just don't see an answer for them on both sides of the football. The biggest thing that they have is, do we turn the football over and give them a short field to where they could potentially get something? Like, that's really it. They're going to be the ones that want to run the football to chew up the clock and condense the game to limit our time of possessions. But again, if you're Ohio State coming to this game, right, leave no doubt, show your presence, and just go handle your business and don't turn the football over.
And that has been kind of the recipe for teams against Ohio State. They'll script their first 10 to 15 plays and usually put together a good first drive. It'll, like Purdue last week, took the ball first. They're able to chew up a lot of the first half. Only, I think, Ohio State got 4 drives, scored on 3 of them, but just didn't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
It'll be curious with Northwestern's rush offense not being that good if they're able to still rush the football, have any measured level of success against the Buckeye defense that's really coming into their own, really playing well at this point, and where that kind of goes. So we'll be able to monitor that and see. And I think you'll have a good feel for it early in the game. And frankly, just getting everybody out of there healthy would be nice. But the Ohio State team this year, Schlegs has had a lot of success. And when you have success like that, you're going to get a lot of individual awards and get a lot of individual accolades. And we'll throw this up. And 11 Warriors put together a nice piece about this with everything that was going on. And we're going to get to a lot of these awards and everything in our headlines later. By the way, I have Joshua Perry joining the program, so he's going to do a great job for us. So we'll be able to see him Saturday evening on the Big Ten desk. We want to throw up that first one, Pat, about, they're not concerned about the player awards. And 11 Warriors put this together in their Skull Session report. Ohio State's not concerned about their player awards. Will Howard's having a career passing year. Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, lethal duo. There's a number of awards that players are up for, and it's very refreshing to see. And we're going to outline them all because I think it's important to give that individual recognition. But I haven't heard anybody focus on that. When they've asked about it, they've honestly deflected all of that individual attention, Schlegs, towards the team, towards their ultimate goals, which you've talked about: beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, win a national championship, in that order.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing is the guys are brushing it off because they know. I think Will Howard had a really nice statement about it. All those awards, all those accolades, they all happen if you continue to win and just do your job. The hardest thing that they have, especially on the offensive side of the football, is that there's one football. Like, that's the point, guys, right? All the other teams, they don't have the luxury to have the amount of weapons and personnel that we have. I would say one of the biggest awards, probably most surprising from all of the noise that we heard at the beginning of the year and even mid-season, is that our offensive line is a semifinalist for the Jim Moore Award, guys. Right? Like, to me, like, boom. And again, you and I alluded to about
the offensive line was bad, Schlegs. That's what we learned earlier this year. They weren't very good.
Not necessarily, not on this show, but hey, whatever. Take it for what it is. But
no, you told me, you said you thought they should fire Justin Fry and Chip Kelly together.
Turd bucket. Hey,
I remember you said that. We'll have to pull the tape back out. I think it's in there somewhere.
Pull it up. You know what? Because that'd be like that Deadpool versus Wolverine where he found it on video, what all the stuff he said. Anyways, I would just, with our guys having the focus of beating Michigan, winning a Big Ten, and winning a national championship, all these things happen. I think it's just because of how mature this team is, right? How close-knit they are. You look, guys, think about the rooms that we have. When you have a J.J. Smith, Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate, the running back duo that we have, right? The coaching job that they've done for Will Howard, that was a 61 complete percentage guy, probably even slightly lower at Kansas State.
I think it was 57.
Well over 70% now at Ohio State. The way our tight ends have developed, not that they're going to ever get an award for tight end, but more so the blocking, right, that they've done. You look at our defense, right? You don't hear a lot of stuff about, we talk about Caleb Downs, but he's up for a lot of awards. But like, everybody is just focused on doing their job and accomplishing the task at hand, which is refreshing in 2024.
It really is. It's great to see. And we've got a great graphic that we'll get to in our headlines about Will Howard and what he has been able to do. You know what? Forget about it. Let's just do it right now, Pat. Toss the graphic up there with Will Howard and his award and where he's at with everything, because this is important. Everybody's been championing Dylan Gabriel and how good he has been. But I think when you look at Will Howard and how skilled he has been this year, when you compare them side by side and what they've been able to do. Now, Will Howard or Dylan Gabriel has one more game because they've got their bye week here coming up. If we can throw that up there, Pat, you look at the fact Dylan's played 9 games, Will's played 10. 74% completion, 0.1 to 74, basically identical. 28-48 to 22-37. Now, keep in mind, like I said, Will Howard has one fewer game, so he could easily add 300 to 400 yards, get that closer. Both 22 touchdown passes. Both have 5 interceptions. Carries, Will's got slightly more, slightly fewer yards. Dylan, 43 for 148. Both have 6 rushing touchdowns. I think, Schlegs, when you look at this after this week, you're going to look and say, hey, Will Howard's done a great job. If they would have beaten Oregon, I think he is probably in the Heisman running and probably going ultimately to New York. They still have that chance. They're going to have a big-time game, obviously, against Indiana, nationally televised game against Michigan that everyone's going to be watching, and then a Big Ten championship game that, assuming they take care of business, will be a rematch against Oregon and Dylan Gabriel, and that's where he'll get his time to shine.
I just like this graphic, right? It's like Spider-Man. Like, you're Spider-Man now. You Dylan Gabriel. I'm Dylan Gabriel. You're Will Howard. Like,
it's the metaverse, right? It's the metaverse.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where we go back. And I think the narrative on Will has changed because, again, guys, these are a bunch of different people, even veteran guys, right? Like, every team, every single year is its own team. It's not the previous team. It's not the team of the future. It is the 2024 Buckeyes. And so some new guys coming in, some guys growing in their maturity, the voice that they need to have, the presence they need to have on the field. What does that look like, feel like, act like that I talk about all the time? It happens. Development throughout the season. Will needs to take care of the football. So does Dylan Gabriel, right? Like, we all see those things. But when you put them together, man, who are you? And you're right, Bob. They have a chance. And the biggest thing that Will has, he has the top 5 matchup versus Indiana. He has a game against Michigan. He then has the Big Ten championship game. And all he's thinking about is just do my job. And his job is to do what? Distribute the football and protect the football. He does that. They win those games. He will be there for the Heisman ceremony.
It's pretty amazing. If they beat Indiana, they'll be going to the Big Ten championship game. They'll have
a chance. He'll
have a chance to have 3 wins over top 5 teams at the current ranking, which would be pretty darn impressive. I don't know if any other team could really champion that as we move forward. But we got Joshua Perry on deck. He's ready to go. He's put on his helmet and shoulder pads to get prepared to battle with Schlegs. But before we get going here, we've got XSport coming up with XSport mouthguards, trusted by professional athletes, designed by NHL team dentists. XSport mouthguards are scientifically proven and tested to absorb high-impact hits to protect both your head and your grill. XSport mouthguards feature 3 layers of custom protection, including patented use of carbon fiber. They 3D print that thing straight up to your grill. That means more protection, better performance, max comfort, clear communication. So you can focus on your game, not on your gear. Don't take chances with your safety. XSportguards.com/Bobby to save 15%. XSport, protect what matters most. Joshua Perry, NBC, coming up next. I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage Beer. Beer-flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and doesn't taste like... I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages, because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer-flavored beer. Now we're pleased to welcome in our guy, Joshua Perry, to the program here. Joshua, we got the power tank on. We've got the guns out. Ink's flying. Dude, I'm just juiced to hear what you got to say.
Man, I just got done at the gym. You know, Bobby texted me last night. He said, hey, can you make it on? Of course. I've been kind of stiff arming, not because I don't want to be on, but schedule's been crazy. I said, I'm gonna make the time to be there with Bobby and Schlegs. And so I had to get it right after the workout coming on here. Heard you guys, by the way, talking about Will Howard in that last segment, the comparison between him and Dillon Gabriel. I do want to point this out. Will Howard, yards per attempt, higher than Dillon Gabriel right now. He throws the ball about 6 less times a game, Will Howard does, than Dillon Gabriel. So when you're looking at that passing number, just the raw yardage, I think we should also take that into account. Much more efficient on a per pass attempt for Will Howard.
Well, he's still one game down. So like being 600 yards back, he's probably going to get 250 to 300 of that caught up. And what's pretty remarkable, Joshua, is if they take care, obviously we've got Northwestern here coming up tomorrow, but if you look and fast forward, if he has a chance to beat Indiana, you're going to be in the Big Ten championship game. He would have a chance to have 3 top 5 victories. And I don't know if that's ever been done before, at least in Ohio State history.
Yeah, I mean, it's that would be the cherry on top there. And it's, I feel like Ohio State genuinely gets judged differently than other schools. You know, like I was just thinking about it earlier today as I was going through, but you're starting to see guys' names come out for the national awards, but you wonder where Will Howard's name is. I think the bar is set so high at the beginning of the year that even when he's having a season that is statistically comparable to some of the other guys that are getting Heisman odds, Dillon Gabriel, people are now starting to talk about Curtis Rourke, who's the Indiana quarterback, which I rightfully think that he should be in that conversation. But you start looking at the numbers, right? Like Will Howard, deep ball completion percentage, better than Curtis Rourke. We mentioned the numbers between Will Howard and Dillon Gabriel. But part of this is also what people expected from Ohio State or where they believe Ohio State should be in relation to the grand scheme of college football. It's just harder to get the job done. You have to look that much better because you're repping the block up.
Man, so not only does the bias of brands impact you from where you stand in the playoffs and rankings, but the bias of what you should be doing versus the unexpected happening to like our guys at Ohio State. Joshua, first off, what did you do in the weight room? Because I'm excited that you're in there. And 2, you've been on a national championship team. You played with a lot of great guys. How does this team, and I'm talking about from a maturity standpoint, compared to like that national championship team of yours, and is how proud you are of their mindset here moving forward in this 2024 season?
All right, so let's start off with the workout today. I had barbell RDLs. We had some stationary split squats. I was doing those weighted 4 time. We also had some dumbbell walking lunges. We had leg extensions, kettlebell swings. We had hamstring curls. So nice lower body day. I've moved everything up. So typically I go Monday, Tuesday, cardio, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but I've moved it to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday straight through so I can do cardio in the hotel on Friday. So I had to get my leg day before I get on the plane. And I know we got a lot of stuff going on here. To answer your question about the leadership of this team, Schlegs, I will say when I got on campus before the Oregon game, I met some guys who I hadn't been able to meet before because I hadn't been back to Columbus during the spring. So Caleb Downs on the defensive side of the ball, for example, I met him for the first time. And it was a really good experience talking to him because of the maturity that he has. Seth McLaughlin, right? A new guy who transferred in, again, being able to meet him for the first time and experience some of that maturity. But then it's the guys who I already knew and the guys who are coming back. And I think there's this good blend of leadership from different backgrounds. But the guys who came back, I think, are the most important ones in that equation. I'll talk about Curtis Grant, Mike Bennett, Jeff Hireman. I think they were a big reason why we were able to win it in 14. They had no more chances left. And I think for the guys who came back to Ohio State this year, Trey and Emeka, Lathan Ransom, Cody Simon, go on down the list. I think those are the guys who are really driving the leadership this year.
How does that hit differently when it is your senior year, Joshua? Like you were a junior on that team. You came back in 15 of what maybe was one of the most talented teams in Ohio State history. And ironically, some of the most talented teams are probably the ones that have fallen short in their national championship quest. But that senior year, there's an added level of desperation, you usually feel like, or I don't know if I use the term motivation, if you will, just
Urgency.
urgency. I mean, how does that
Yeah.
hit a little differently?
No, I mean, it is urgent, right? And like, it was so weird my last year because we did it the year before. And I don't want to say that anybody was complacent because of that, but I do think there was a little bit of that, disease of me where guys were kind of like, I've done this before and they're chasing us. And, we're kind of standing there at the mountaintop. And that can be detrimental to a team. These guys don't have that. They have not been at the mountaintop. There should be no disease of me. There shouldn't be any selfishness because they're all here to win, right? They want to win against Michigan. They want to win a Big Ten championship, and they want to win a national title. And those seniors made it very clear in the offseason that part of this was beat our rival Big Ten title, and we want to be champions. And so I think that's where the urgency comes. They put it on the record. They haven't done that elite level of winning here, even though they've won a ton of games. And I think that's their urgency, is they want to be on that elite level of winning.
All right, Joshua, talk to us a little bit about Northwestern. So you're going in, you're playing in Wrigley. Wrigleyville's out there, which is super fun. I mean, I don't know if you were able to go out there and catch a game this year. Growing up, I was a Cubs fan, and my cousin lived down there, and it's super fun to go to. But now you're playing in Wrigley, right, on the road, turf, 4-5 Northwestern. Where do you see the Buckeyes? What do they have to do on the national landscape in this game moving forward as you get ready for Indiana?
So I'll say this, is the national landscape is really intriguing right now, in particular with Ohio State. Sitting there with only one loss. They've got the game against Indiana. That's going to be a big one. Certainly want to beat your rival, but a clear path to making it to the Big Ten championship game. And if they win that, they would have a first round bye in the college football playoffs. I don't think in a game like this, style points actually matter that much for all of the reasons that I put out there. I don't think Ohio State's going to be a team that's kind of sitting there on the bubble. Even if they were to lose to Indiana, I think that they would probably safely be in the college football playoff picture. So for Ohio State, I think it is about playing a clean game for their confidence moving forward. I do think it's about, going out there and dominating to their standards for their confidence moving forward. But when it comes to the committee and how these games are judged and where they place you in this whole thing, I don't think it matters that much. It's a weird scenario, right? Like playing at Wrigley, it is a cool place to play. I've covered games there. The turf is typically terrible, and that's going to be an issue. And these guys are premium athletes. It's not like Iowa and Northwestern last year where, they ain't premium athletes, guys. Like I'm very curious to see how that is. The locker room setup, I don't know if are they going to be on the same sideline, because that's been a thing there before.
They structured so they'll be able to go separate sidelines.
Okay,
Thank God. Ryan did say they're going to stay in the bullpen during halftime because it's. So
are they going to get the orange slices while they stay out on the field for halftime like we're doing the Little League game? The whole point is it's a very different game day setup, and this is where you have to rely on the leaders of the team. Don't let any of that stuff distract you. Just go out there and play football.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like you said, the turf, I always tell people, you can't firm up turf that you put in like a month and a half ago. That's not how grass works. Science has come a long way, but we haven't gotten there yet. And the being down and staying in the bullpen for halftime, I'm curious how that's going to work, Joshua, because I don't know how covered it is. Is it open air? Yeah. I don't think there'll be a lot of weather. But
it's starting to get chilly out here, though.
It is. But it's such a long walk back, and I caution them about that because that's how the old Metrodome used to be. We played Minnesota there, the Gophers in college, and then also I played there a couple times against the Vikings. I mean, it was up 4 flights of stairs and then like 150, 200-yard walk. It was a haul to get there, and you didn't have time, and you'd be gassed. Like if you were the first unit back up, I mean, it was rough. They had to get you out there early, so you've got that to deal with. So there's going to be some stuff there. I mean, I'm just looking at this game like go win it the surest way. If it's 31-3 and everyone walks off the field, I think that's a victory.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And I think, too, just for Ohio State's sake, I think you got to end this one as early as possible when it comes to that offensive line. I love the way that those guys have responded to all of the challenges. They ain't got that many bodies left to roll through there. And they cannot sustain another injury to one of their starters. So I think, just in terms of importance, those guys need to set the tone and end the game early so they can get out of there.
We will be right back with Joshua Perry after this. I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like. I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer. All right, still rocking here with our guy, Joshua Perry, as we cruise on in to the weekend. Talked a lot about the Buckeyes, going a little bit more national right now. Playoff rankings. I feel like this is the first year where there's been a fairly significant amount of deference, Joshua, that's been paid to the Big Ten with where these teams are and the respect that they've been given.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because I do think it's warranted. I also think it is indicative of the construction of each of these conferences. So I think everybody would agree that for the Big Ten, it is top heavy. You have Oregon, who is undefeated. They've got a win over Ohio State, who everybody believes is a really good team. Ohio State's got that win over Penn State. People believe Penn State's good. You got Indiana undefeated. It would make sense that those teams would be toward the top of these initial rankings. Now, as I look at the SEC, they might not have the dynastic Georgia rosters, right? It might not be the Alabama dynasty, like, Death Star teams. But as you start to look at it, like Alabama, depending on what day you catch them, that's going to be a real tough fight. Texas, depending on what day. By the way, Texas does not have a marquee win. Neither here nor there. Texas, very talented. Depending on when you catch them, that's going to be a tough game. You say the same thing about Georgia. You got Ole Miss. You got Tennessee. You got Texas A&M. I like South Carolina. That's the strength of that conference this year. It is very competitive. Maybe not teams as good as Ohio State and Oregon at the top, but when you start talking about like 1 through probably 6 or 7, they're all right there as teams that you believe can win that conference.
Yeah, they have a lot more attrition because the depth is there. And the hardest thing, too, with Ohio State, like in the SEC, they're all playing each other, whereas in the Big Ten, Ohio State really is the only one that will play Oregon, Indiana, and Penn State. Like the other ones, they don't play each other, which is super crazy. It's just how the schedule happens. Joshua, you as the analyst, I know we have to talk about the playoffs, but how meaningless is their rankings as of right now versus where they're eventually going to be? Because we still have the conference championship games to play.
So I think it's an interesting question. I think who they rank in the back of the rankings, like that 18 through 25 is important because those are how they justify the teams that they put at the top oftentimes. So I always pay attention to that. I think when teams lose, how they drop is an important thing to consider. Georgia dropped 8 spots, and I know that Ole Miss was the lower ranked team that beat them. But the only reason I bring this up is I do think it sets the table for like an Indiana, for example, to drop, 7 spots if they lose to Ohio State. Those are things that I pay attention to. I also think that they put ceilings on teams, right? Like we saw how they treated the Big 12 in that initial ranking. They don't think it's a very good conference. That might be a single bid conference this year. The same thing with the ACC. The way that Miami fell after losing, like it could be a single bid conference this year. So those are the things that are important to me. But at the end of the day, they do whatever they want to do, and they just lie to our face, and they don't really do a great job of justifying things. They bump up Indiana and BYU after probably playing their worst games of the season. They say, well, they beat Michigan and they beat Utah. And it's like, well, those teams are no good this year. The committee will always find a way to be liars, but I do think we should pay attention to what they show us and not necessarily what they tell us.
I agree with you 100%. Ward Manuel saying that Michigan or Indiana and Penn State, Indiana and Penn State just beat Washington and Michigan. Those were quality wins. I'm like, well, quality brands. I don't know how good those teams necessarily are this year, but they're able to kind of lean into that. And for once, it seems like the Big Ten is getting the benefit of the doubt with everything. As you look at some of you're talking about the SEC, as you look at some of these rankings, I know there's a bunch of people that have said, well, I'll pick your 3 SEC teams over Indiana and Utah, or Indiana, BYU, and Penn State. Like, the one thing about a lot of these SEC teams, Joshua, is they've been very inconsistent. Now, I know they've had tough schedules, but I mean, I watched a Georgia team dominate Texas. I watched a Georgia team look terrible against Ole Miss. I feel like a lot of teams in the SEC have those games this year. Like, how difficult do you think it's going to be to figure out and predict how these playoff brackets will actually break?
Yeah, the SEC apologists got to really stop it right now. So, I mean, you got – and Vanderbilt's a much better team, right? But you had Alabama lose to Vanderbilt. Like, we got to stop doing this. You had Tennessee. I think their loss was to Arkansas. And at the beginning of the year, we're talking about a Sam Pittman, hot seat situation, right? Like, we have to stop with this whole just because they're from the SEC, we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And you're right. The variability is what makes this a really hard thing to consider. But like, for everybody who is like, oh, how is Penn State up there? The folks who say that down south, I don't hear them ask the same question about how Texas is up there, where their best win is what? Like in Oklahoma, Michigan, we thought that they might be good, and they got their butt whooped by 15 points or whatever the number was at home against a Georgia team that is like not the old school dynasty Georgia. You got Carson Beck, who they're scared to throw the football down the field with him. And Kirby Smart is scared to yell at Carson Beck right now. I don't know what's going on there, but this is not the same Georgia. So all of that to say, I think criticisms are fair. I think we should have these conversations, but let's do it in a balanced manner, because we can go back and forth on all these conferences.
Hey, I'll ask you this real fast. How are they going to change the fact? Are we going to eliminate conference championship games moving forward? Because the advantage is for the teams that don't play in it, because they get a bye that week, right, before they start. And then now you got a conference championship game where the winner then gets a bye, but the loser has to go right back in and play with also having played another game. Is that going to be changed?
What's going to be interesting about this conference championship conversation is, first off, they said they won't punish teams for playing the extra game. But, if you're BYU and you do get upset in a conference championship game by, let's say, Colorado, is the committee really going to put both of those teams in? Right? Like, if SMU would upset, or let's do a crazy one. Let's say Clemson, who is still in it, wins the ACC. Are we going to put 2 teams from that conference in there? And then who are we going to leave out on the other side? The Big Ten, the SEC would absolutely lose their mind. To your point, there are probably some people who after this year would be like, do we just kind of, like they do in the NFL, do we put our guys on the shelf for a week and not even worry about going to the conference championship game? Because certainly we might have to play the extra game in the playoff. But if my path is, playing the group of 5 team and then playing a conference champ from a Power 5 that upset their way into it, I'd rather do that all day long. It's an interesting thing. And I don't know if we expected these conversations to pop up, but that's the reality of this expanded format.
So let me ask you this, and we'll get you out of this one Joshua. So I have 2 questions I want to get in. I'm going to go with the simpler one then, because I have a really good SEC hypothetical of getting teams in with multiple losses. But how good do you think this Indiana team is? I mean, I know they execute well. They're disciplined. They play good football. I really like Curtis Rourke as a quarterback, and I think he's probably a third-day NFL guy, draft guy. But how talented are they athletically?
I think in their wide receiver room, talented. I think their secondary, they're talented. Those are guys who are just as good athletes as anybody anywhere else. I think they play hard at linebacker, and I do think that their defensive line is a combination of try hard and of solid talent. The biggest issue for me is their offensive line. I think is not the same as you would expect from some of the other teams that are going to be ranked there in the top 5 or the top 10 by the end of the year. And that's typically where these things become different, right? Is the big guys up front are usually the difference between elite programs, great programs, good programs, because everybody finds athletes. So I think it's their offensive line. And what Michigan did to them, and Michigan's got first rounders, but more pressures, more sacks, more TFLs than they had given up all year long.
That's why watching that Michigan game, it kind of, I feel like, exposed them a little bit up front with what they had. And then I said I had one, but I was told I had time. So you're of the belief, Joshua, that whoever makes it to the Big Ten and SEC championship game, those teams are in, win or lose, correct?
Yes.
So there is a pathway, and it's not all that far-fetched, where LSU can make the SEC championship game. If they make it in and then ultimately lose, they would be a 4-loss team that would basically be in the playoff.
Yeah. I mean, it would be hard for me to try to sell to somebody that the runner-up in the SEC shouldn't be in a 12-team field, right? Like that would be the way that I put it. Like, take the record out of it. They were runner-up in the SEC. Yeah. Like, that's a really difficult thing to do. They should be one of the teams that makes it. We should stop calling this a damn playoff too. It's an invitational. This is not crowning the best teams. We got auto bids in here. We have set this thing up to be more inclusive than competitive. So they would deserve to be in the field of the invitational.
I love it. Joshua, we appreciate it. Mr. Joshua Perry, NBC desk, Saturday night. Go check him out. Find Buckeye as well. Enjoy the Windy City, and we'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks,
one of the best, one of our favorites, and filled in admirably for Schlegs. Try to get him on as much as we can. He's a busy dude. Coming up next, we got our headlines here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like. I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer. All right, now we got our headlines brought to you by our friends over at Affinity Whole Health. They got personalized treatment plans to help you feel better, whether you're struggling with weight loss, poor sleep, muscle loss, low energy. They can help you with all of it. If you just want to feel like a better version of yourself, feel like you're a little bit younger, they can get you there. So here's the protocol. This is what you do. You go on to affinitywholehealth.com. You schedule your free consultation. They set up the time. You come in. They'll develop a program for you with whatever your goals are. You want to lose weight. You want to gain some muscle. Maybe a combination of both. They got TRT, HRT programs. They've got semaglutide for weight loss. They can do all that. They'll build a program for you. You go home. 2 days later, boom, it's at your front door. Don't have to come back to the office except for some checkups intermittently. That way you can focus and make your life the best you want. Affinity Whole Health. Go check them out and do not wait until the start of the year. All right, so we got a lot of awards. Buckeyes aren't focusing on them, but we're going to give the guys some flowers. Seth McLaughlin, center for Ohio State, comes in from Alabama, and he got offered and accepted an invite to the Senior Bowl, which is big. it's big. It's a chance to be able to take a look at it. And the director of the Senior Bowl, who I talked to every week on XM, Jim Nagy, was bragging about him the other day. Said, based on our recent calls with NFL teams about the Senior Bowl roster, strong case could be made that Ohio State football Seth McLaughlin is the most improved player at any position in this year's draft class. Said last year they had him as low as an undrafted free agent. Most have him as a solid middle rounder, which is quite good, Schlegs, for a center.
Yeah, I will talk about Seth later, but I'm excited for him. And you know what? This also goes to a shout out to Coach Fry, right? Like he came in,
He's trying to get him fired earlier, Schlegs. We talked about that.
Did not say that, but hey, you know what? Kudos. I mean, again, you got two guys that came in from very, very different programs, Alabama, Kansas State, and they're having career years here at Ohio State. It goes into the coaching, but very, very proud of Seth.
All right. And so we got more awards coming up, more honorees, if you will. Walter Camp, Player of the Year semifinalist. The guy, J.J. Smith, Schlegs. I mean, next year he'll probably win everything. I don't know if he gets on the Blitnikoff this year. I don't know if he might get to be a finalist. I don't know if he'll win that. He's going to be involved in a lot of different things, but the fact that as a true freshman, he's even getting spoken about in this stuff is crazy to me.
It is, but I also think it's a testament to Brian Hartline and Emeka Mbuka, because that's why Emeka stayed, right? He wanted to invest in him, and also Cardinal Tate guys, because Cardinal Tate's really good. But for JJ, it was just the manner in which he performs, but more importantly, how he handles his business within the Woody of being a pro. It's just his mindset, man. It's just it's another level, and it's why people are recognizing him as one of the best that there is.
Absolutely, Schlegs. And we got time for one more quick one. The dynamic duo of Ohio State. You don't even get to comment on this, but I want to give them their flowers. The highest only running back duo with PFF grades 80 plus, 84.3, 82.5, both about the same. Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, guys getting it done. So they may not get the national awards because they're splitting touches, they're splitting their carries, and that's tough, obviously, to have the volume that you need. But those guys are doing one heck of a job. That is our headlines brought to you by Affinity. Next, our 3 keys to the game, what to watch for in our tailgate talk, brought to you by RealTruck.
Get the most out of work, life, and all your outdoor adventures with top-selling upgrades for your truck. Guaranteed fit, free shipping, easy install, expert support, and thousands of dealers just a click away. Bring your truck to life. RealTruck. Upgrade today and save between $50 and $400 on select RealTruck products. Visit realtruck.com/specials.
All right, Schlegs, you got to cut 2 minutes here. Hammer out your 3 keys to the game.
No turnovers, right? You just want to see clean football. I think that's an area that moving forward against Indiana and against Michigan, no turnovers. That's one. Number 2, tackling. We saw some missed tackles. Then we have some games that we're really good at tackling. Let's clean up the tackling. You're going to be on a bad service. Let's make sure we get the guys down, get off the field, tackling. And the last thing is not necessarily something that you have to do there, but it's what you want as an outcome, and that's injury-free, because we have a big game coming up next week. You're not overlooking this game, but one thing that we want is injury-free. Part of that is starting fast, getting your number ones off the field, allowing the backups to come in and finish the game. How about you, Bob?
All right, Schlegs, I've got what you call the 3 S's. I want to be sharp, crisp, come out, start the game, get this thing in the ground early so you can get everybody off of there, get some of the young guys, maybe another S, Julian, I'm just saying, get him some reps at quarterback, prepare him potentially for the future. I want to shut out. I know that Ben Stevens and talked about this, how Purdue, they're better offense than Purdue. They're not that much better. Okay. They're towards the bottom. They're in the teens in both passing. Their rushing attack's a little bit better, but they're not great, down in the triple digits for most of their stuff. And then I want to be safe. I want everybody to walk off of that field. We were talking with Joshua Parrott earlier, talking with AJ about it on Wednesday, just how rough it is trying to get that firm footing when you start talking about how much these baseball fields, when they're sodded, they're going to give. So keep your feet underneath you, get everybody off. They cannot withstand any more injuries on that offensive line. So hopefully they'll be juiced up and they'll be ready to go. They'll be able to get off the field, play crisp, play clean. And I think that is what you ultimately need to see. I also want to tell you about this, Schlegs. It's almost holiday time, and I keep telling everybody about it, but our friends over at RealTruck, they're the best place to go for all your truck, Jeep, Bronco accessories. I always tell you about the cover I got for my truck, got some interior stuff as well. I've got a bumper for my Jeep, got a cover for my Jeep, or a top rather, all kinds of stuff. Winch on there. Schlegs has souped up his trucks there. Broncos, they got it for everything. So if you're going there getting some stuff for Christmas, maybe for you or for someone else, spend $100, use promo code Bobby at checkout. They're going to give you a free hat. Maybe you keep the hat, maybe you give it to someone else, whatever. But it's easy to spend money there because everything's so awesome and you're going to want to make your stuff look sweet. So go check them out, realtruck.com. Coming up next, we wrap up the show. And remember, it's Dude of the Week. Dude's not a gender, a dude is a lifestyle.
Get the most out of work, life, and all your outdoor adventures with top-selling upgrades for your truck. Guaranteed fit, free shipping, easy install, expert support, and thousands of dealers just a click away. Bring your truck to life. RealTruck. Upgrade today and save between $50 and $400 on select RealTruck products. Visit realtruck.com/specials.
All right, Schlegs. I know you've been battling, digging around, trying to find in there, yelling at Pat, saying to find me a dude of the week when you have one job to do your job. Find a dude of the week.
My dude of the week. That's not my dude of the week.
And the dude of the week is honestly a segment that you brought to us. It was your idea. And now you're trying to abdicate your responsibility as a dude finder when we know you've been finding more dudes in more places and dudettes than anyone else in the world. So go ahead, sir. Who is your dude of the week?
Dude of the week, Seth McLaughlin, center, Ohio State, not only just for getting the award and the offensive line being up for the Joe Moore Award, but everything he's doing with the run the damn ball hats and the proceeds going to feed the hungry in Columbus, Ohio. The dude's ran out of hats twice. So I appreciate everybody. I told him I'd help him with the supply chain. I didn't, but he's doing it. They're going to make another third batch. Guys, listen, Seth, you're my dude of the week. Bob, what about you?
They've raised over $10,000 for feeding the homeless here and the needy in Central Ohio. So not only are you lazy, but you're also a liar. So you need to go out there and help Seth and get that done. You told him you would do it. You have failed. My dude of the week, big Yellowstone fan. I've got to give it to Costner, my man, John Dutton. It's disappointing. They couldn't get this thing worked out. The director, producer was being a tchotchke with him, Schlegs. Didn't want to try to work out. Dutton's out there shooting Horizon. He's got like his whole life's fortune into this thing, trying to make Horizon great, which I'm going to watch here as soon as football's over, maybe even before. It's a Western that's like 4 parts, supposed to be tremendous. Mickey Marotti gave it a thumbs up, Schlegs. He's endorsing it. My dad probably is going to love it. But I can't wait to see that. So John Dutton, he's not going to be in the last season of Yellowstone. I'm going to watch it anyway. Thank you to Kevin Costner. Schlegs, you got a score prediction for us?
I'm gonna go 38-0.
I like that. I went 38-6. That's always, I said I wanted to see a shutout. I always give you room for a couple field goals. You get some decent drives. I like the 38 number. 5 touchdowns and a field goal. Sounds about right for this game and feeling pretty good. Any other advice for the Buckeyes as they head into what is now the home stretch?
Nope. Just, hey, listen, attitude and effort, man. Let's go out there, play fast, play hard, play violent, get the dub.
Hey, man, we are less than 2 weeks inside of Thanksgiving. There is a lot of great stuff to get going. So big week for us. We appreciate it. Next week will be even huger, bigly the biggest, as we'll break down Indiana and talk about this Northwestern game. So stay locked in. Tune in here Monday, 12:30, Bobby Carpenter Show.